So as you mentioned, I am from Oracle. And I don't know if you guys are probably aware that downtown's been a little bit crowded and overtaken with a lot of red. The prices of the hotels have gone up a great deal. So anyway, yeah, there's another small conference going on. But I bring that up because I'm really excited about being here and talking about sales enablement, something that I'm passionate about, with people that obviously are as passionate as well, or you wouldn't be here, right? So this, to me, is actually more fun, and I'm more excited to be here. So what I want to talk about, and we said this just for a few minutes ago, is that there's really a difficult place between product marketing and sales enablement. And I used to do product marketing with Oracle as well, so I've spent years doing that, and then I was fortunate to come over to sales enablement. So I have both sides of it, but we realized what a real issue that was. So some of the things, I'm going to kind of go through some of these things with you. Have to display the safe harbor, even though I'm not talking about products specifically. So I wanted to kind of step back a little bit and talk about what sales enablement is, because in a lot of different companies, it means various different things. I mean, ultimately, it still comes down to enabling our salespeople to sell better, right? But the functions within organizations are very different. And some of the differences of the type of content that come out of sales enablement versus what's coming out of product marketing, and even what I didn't put on the agenda is product development or product management, right? So everybody's creating content. What are those differences, and how do we bring them all together? And then understanding what your sales teams needs. I think we've been talking about that in some of the earlier sessions, really keeping those people in the loop. You know, what do they need? Not just let's dictate to them what we're going to teach them. And then some techniques for actually delivering content. So I believe Darlene mentioned that you're only, going out to do in-person training, but was it 15% or something like that? Well, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to do everything on demand so that they have it at their fingertips. They can train when they need to, when they want to, when they have the time to. So what is sales enablement? So I kind of went back in time really back in time where, sales enablement has always been around, even when there was no record of actual B2B sales, transactions, right? Because if there's a business that needing to sell to another business, there's sales enablement going on. So in the 30s, it was all written. So this is when, anybody heard of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People? Yeah, pretty much. How many of you read it? How many of you read it more than once? Yeah, there's a few people out there. But, and there's quite an age difference here. And that book was written in the 1930s, and it's still being sold today, and people are still reading it, because it's really one of those things especially back in that time, that was a sales tool for them. That was really for them to understand, how do I engage with my customers better and build better relationships? Then we move on to the 1940s through the 60s, where we have the traveling salesman. Right? And sometimes I think about selling encyclopedias, going door to door, selling vacuum cleaners and things like that. But there's also the salespeople that go visit other companies, right? And so they're on the road all of the time. And so they have very little technology. They have a landline that they can call and make phone calls with, but that's pretty much it. And then we move into the 80s, where we start to come up with this. I think the strategic selling was the first sales methodology that was ever created, I guess you could say. I mean, there's been many since then, but it was basically building a structure around what a salesperson needed to do in his daily job. Also, the invention of the first cell phone was in the 80s. I think it was Motorola. And so not all salespeople could afford a Motorola cell phone back then, but some of the bigger companies did, and it really helped to improve the way that they were able to communicate with their prospects and customers. And then we move into the internet being invented, and so not only did salespeople have access to customer data, customer information, not data, but customer information. But the customer also was now able to get more information on your products and services. So there's another element there that they have to deal with. So they're starting to get more knowledgeable about what you sell. And then we move into the 2000s where we've got all sorts of new technologies. So there's companies that started developing marketing tools, software that would interact with sales tools. So, really started to change the way that those two functions would speak to one another, right? So we would have marketing campaigns that would be created and it would feed into sales solutions. And so the salesperson could have insights into both of those things. So that's really where there's other technologies as well. Who won't go into all the details, but then, we have more of a scientific selling process where we're bringing in AI, things like that, where we're taking data from all the different places and we're analyzing it, and then we're putting it into a way that we can present it to the salesperson so he could better understand who they need to be selling to. So I put this here because it was astounding to me when I read this, but $70 billion is what's spent in the US on training. So that's $1,459 per salesperson. So that's just an average. So that's kind of one of the big reasons why I think a lot of companies are now moving away from instructor-led training into more of an e-learning. And so some of the challenges that, not for companies specifically, but just in the world of sales enablement, if you don't have a CRM, you're really way behind the curve, right? So this is causing a lot of problems still today, whether you have, you're using spreadsheets and things like that to kind of manage your customer base. So and it's still a challenge. And so the other thing is, I think it was 2008 with the recession, they still really started to cut back significantly on sales training. They were spending way too much money. And so now that things are better, there's still resistance to spend a lot of money on sales training. So that's another problem that we're facing. The other is the rise of AI. So we have a lot of different ways that we can collect information about our customers and products. So that's something that we also need to think about. And then because of all of these technologies coming into play, now it's really decreasing, how many salespeople we can have, right? So we don't need as many to go out, and so there's just some challenges there that we're experiencing. So, kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between the different content, and this is not so much generic. I mean, this is coming from Oracle's perspective, but so it can change slightly depending on what company you're with. But for us in product marketing, just some of the, and you've seen, I think the gentleman before me displayed a lot of different content that product marketing creates, right? But some of the key things that I wanted to mention is sales plays. So sales plays are a big thing for us as well. So, and it's not so much has a playbook in it, but there's a sales play that's really about kind of a play around how to solve a specific problem for a customer, right? So it could be a very industry specific, very solution specific, although solutions don't really get included into the message until the very end, right? So we don't really care about that. We care about what kind of problem is the customer having, and how we're going to solve that problem. Battle cards, elevator pitches, and ultimately the customer presentation that the salesperson can use. Then there's product development. They're putting content together all the time as well, and they're sharing it out there. So you have to be very cognizant of what they're creating, where they're keeping their content. And there's more feature function solution overview decks, the customer success decks. So they're very in touch with customers. They're actually using our software, and they get stories from them that we can actually share with other customers. So they focus on that. So that could be very valuable too to our salespeople. They focus on competitive intelligence. So what our salespeople should be aware of when they're going into a deal, when they're competing against whatever competitor, right? So some of the things, the objection handling and things like that. And then, of course, they're always going to have information on the product roadmap. And then sales enablement. So what we do is we take kind of a collaboration of those two things and put together our content's more how to position that product or service to sales. And so we take that corporate messaging and we use content. I mean, we don't create it all from scratch necessarily, but we're collaborating all of this content together to create an e-learning program for sales. Okay, so it could be a solution overview, it could be a sales play specific training, or really detailed, and we do training for our SEs as well. So we do a little bit of instructor-led as well. We do programs for our brand new out of college, or new sales coming into the organization. They go through like a week training, but for the most part, it's all e-learning. So this is kind of, and this can vary with different companies, but this is the learning journey for our salespeople and our solution engineers. So one of the things that when they first come in, their onboarding is, they get an introduction of what it is that they're going to be selling. And it's really more of an overview. Then they move on up to product-specific training. So they need to understand, all the products that they are allowed to sell. And then there's a lot of industries, right? And so if in some cases, they only can sell to certain industries, or maybe they sell to any industry, it's kind of open. So they need to be able to understand how they're going to sell to a particular industry. And then, what's the best way to understand and explain the context of everything that you're taking in, right? So it can be, when we talk about pillar, I focus specifically on CX service and CX sales. So that's what we call a particular pillar. So a lot of it can be just all cloud, and then you start breaking it down to more specifics. And then, so you could take all of that and then message it to your customer, right? So it's all about the messaging. And then, there's sales plate packs, which I mentioned before, which kind of breaks it down into, we do probably every quarter, like maybe 3 different plate packs for our particular pillars. So it's different because, Oracle's pretty huge. They have lots of different products. And then, there's other ways, obviously, to stay connected. We do a lot of on-demand. We do a lot of webcasts. We started a program I used to host. It was called 5 and 15, and it was live. And we would record it as well, so people could go back and look at it later. But it was really focused around 5 things that you need to know about a particular topic in 15 minutes. Because salespeople, as you know, have very short attention spans. If it's longer than that, they're not going to pay any attention. Or they can squeeze it into their calendar, right? It's only 15 minutes, and it really boomed, and it's still going today. That was when I was in product marketing. But it's really a great way to, and we do it every week, for them to just get 15 minutes of really, really good, important information. So that's kind of the learning journey. As you know, at the bottom on every one of them, you're going to have 1 to multiple learning plans, and then we can measure. We use a learning management system so that we know who's taking it, did they pass the assessment. In some cases, courses are required, learning plans are required. So that's a good way to measure who's consuming. And then we can also, sales leadership can see, well, of those that have been taking these courses, how well are they doing? Or maybe someone that's not doing so well hasn't taken any. Maybe we need to push him to start taking some of these courses. So it's a good way to measure. Right, so I think one of the key things to this whole presentation is this here, is creating this sales enablement community. Right, and so the mission really is is for sales enablement communities to collaborate across all the lines of businesses within your that are not all the lines of business, but all the lines of businesses that are important to this process, right? So it could be, your solution engineer leadership, sales leadership, product marketing, of course, some cases product development, but you need to get, that's the whole mission of this, is to get all of these people together. We do it, I think, once every couple of months to kind of focus on what's happening in the next quarter. So, it needs to be done often. It's hard to get it depends on how high of a level you go up. It's hard to get a lot of time, but it's very, very important to do this process. And so, we get, I think I already mentioned, we get product marketing and even business development involved into these meetings. And we do it the first 2 months each quarter. And then, make sure you understand what the objectives of this meeting are. For us, we're defining and coordinating product solution training, obviously. What's the next big thing that's coming up? Where are our gaps that we need to be able to fill? The biggest thing, and that was mentioned when I was introduced, is that it can be contentious between these three groups, right? Because everybody has their idea of what they think it is that they need. So it's important for us as sales enablement leaders is to, make sure we're taking the best. Sales says they need this. Well, is it just a lot of talk, or is there something really to it? Like, how are you going to use that? What do you think that's, value is that going to give to you? And so it's good to get all these people in the same room to understand what it is they actually need. Let's see. So the techniques. So I have a video that I'm going to play, and it's sort of a montage of all sorts of different. So for me personally, but Oracle as well, since we are focusing so much on e-learning, it's important for us to make it really engaging, that, it's not just a PowerPoint that you're watching and you're falling asleep, or you're just walking away and you're letting it play. We're trying to make it more interactive and more engaging. So one of the things that we have done is use a lot of video. And we're not talking like hours of video, because that's the same problem, right? Like short clips, even doing some of these webcasts, or even just these podcast style, where you have somebody and you're just sitting in at a table and chairs, and you're talking to each other, and maybe interview, whatever it might be about a particular topic. And, putting it out there we have OTube, which is, like our YouTube channel. And then we share that out there so it's just, making it interesting and innovative. So this video that I'm going to play is just a montage of all of the different styles that I've done. And we can, stop and kind of talk about some of these techniques if you want to. But I was just going to go through that little, it's about just under 2 minutes, right? So it's like a coffee, sitting at a table. In this case, we have a couple of different cameras. So depending on what, access you have to this type of studio. But a lot of this is green. This is an actual studio, but there's some green screen stuff here as well that they'll show. And these are students that came in, and we did a little, hour training, and it was really interactive. It was really great. And then you could record it all and then share it later. We pulled a couch in, and I tried this other style. This one here, I don't think I have a pause button. He's doing this via like a webcast. So it looks like he's in a classroom. This is one where he's teaching on audio equipment. There's me in my 5 and 15. So this is just like a big TV was behind me. You could do it black. There's some different styles that you can do, but there's just the green screen. So all you need is a good camera and some audio and some good lighting. But I think it makes it so much more interesting to add this type of thing into especially when this is an interview style. I invited a sales guy to come in. He wanted to create a very short video. He was trying to, sell whatever it was. I can't remember. And so I did this interview, and he posted it on LinkedIn and was able to use it via social media. This is another podcast style. It was just, broadcast through Facebook Live, I think she used. So there's also sorts of different techniques. It's kind of just a long shot of the studio, but I mean, it's pretty, writing on the board. It's just kind of cool. So I thought I would share that with you. You guys have any questions about that I just showed before we move on? Yeah.
I do like the idea of getting some dynamic salesperson.
Yeah.
To present in a minute or two.
Yeah. So one of the things we do for our yearly sales is our sales training, I should say, is they have to be able to present back what they learned, right? So they go through all this training. It used to be live. We used to fly around the world and train all of our sales all over the globe, but now it's all via e-learning. And at the end of all of that training, they have to be able to stand and deliver. And it's being recorded, and their manager does grades it basically, either pass or fail. They have to do it again. But one of the things that we did do during that immersion training is had sales come in and actually talk about how they won a deal. So we picked a deal, and one in Europe, one over in APAC, I think it was, and then one in the US. And we had them in the studio where they actually talked about how they won that deal. And I gave them kind of an outline, like what I thought would be important that other sales reps would want to know. And it was probably maybe 3 to 5 minutes each person. And boy, we got great feedback from that. So.
Yeah, that's good because they're usually used to be spoken to.
Right. Well, and we want to make sure that they understood the message, that they understood how it is exactly that they need to be talking to the customer, a certain type of customer, whatever the buying persona is, and that they understood and they grasp it. And you can take a test. They do have to take a test as well, but the real test is them standing and delivering what they learned. Yeah. See if it worked. Right. Some sales managers will require them to do that more than once, throughout the year. We do that in that particular training once a year. But yeah, if they're good sales managers will require that more often. Yes?
Company. So being an international company, how do you deal with localization in your training materials?
Oh, we do translation. I mean, not we, but we have a company that we use to translate to simplified Chinese, and there's a couple of other languages that we translate. But the content itself, once it's created by product marketing and once it's created by us, we don't do anything with it. So if a country requires translation, we'll pass it off to them and they'll do it themselves. Or they'll hire somebody and pay for it, themselves. But that's how we do it. Yes.
Hello, testing. You had mentioned that there's an LMS that you guys use.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to ask what that is?
It's NetExam.
Do you like it? Just kidding, don't answer that.
Yeah, I don't have any issues, but I don't really deal with that part of it. I get reporting from it and, so it works for us, but yeah. Yes.
How are you packaging these small videos and so on? I mean, how are your intended participants actually know where to find them?
Know where to find them. Very good. So our learning management system, we have a front end. We call it Oracle Sales and Partner Network, so that partners can access it too. And so it's basically, they will get a notification when they've been enrolled in a particular course. So if it's something that they have to take, and so they get a notification, they click right on it. But they have a homepage. We've tried to make it pretty simple where they can search by product, area, whatever it is because we do also personal training as well. We don't just do, so everything can go out there. But yeah, that's how we organize it. They know where to go to find it. Mm-hmm.
Are you, in any way, labeling them as like micro learning or just in time training or anything like that?
Well, we do have categories for sure. So, because we have learning plans that are going to be our solution training, which are going to have like 10 courses in it, and it's not going to take you 5 minutes. But those are more like you're required to take it because you need to understand that product and the messaging behind that product. And they'll be required to take it and so forth, and they're tested, and we can measure that, all of that. But then, we have various different ways of communicating out to our sales teams about different programs like 5 and 15s, or there's one called Good Morning Oracle, which product development does, and they talk more about specifics of the product and that sort of thing. So, but we do have a front page that kind of helps to guide them through what it is exactly they're looking for. Yes.
How do you reconcile a poor enablement course versus, for lack of a better term, a less than talented workforce?
Well, so we have, to be politically correct, so if I understood you correctly, so we do have, like I mentioned, the solution overview, and that's something that when we have an onboarding program, like I'm sure a lot of you guys do, and there's week 1 you have to do this, week 2 you have to do this. There are a lot of overview courses, so if you don't want that person to just get down in the nitty gritty or have to take 10 courses, we have overviews of each product. So say I sell Service Cloud, for example, but I really want to learn about Marketing Cloud because, potentially I could sell into, existing Marketing Cloud customers. I can take overview courses and things like that, and it's not as deep into the product and solutions and so forth. Does that answer your question? Oh. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think somebody asked that earlier too. How do you reconcile that? So we do have a lot of business intelligence that we can pull, like by region. So if we know that this region, everyone's taken, the required courses, but that region's still not doing that well, maybe we need to reassess. Maybe they didn't, maybe they didn't really pay attention. I don't know. There's a lot of analysis that goes on. We do a lot of that, but fortunately, I don't have to do that myself. But yeah, another question?
I'm curious for this deliver that you do. With your product suite, there's obviously a variety of things. Some include pitching,
Yep.
that. How do you determine, is it just your key positioning that everyone is doing?
No. So that's a really good question. So basically, there's quite a few courses, and there's different paths, and everyone takes like the standard cloud, Oracle messaging, making sure they understand what cloud is, that kind of thing. So that goes across the board for everyone. And then there's another path that goes down to the tech team that sells technical stuff. And then you've got, we split it into front office and back office. So front office, it goes down another path, and it's more like EPM, HCM, that kind of thing. And then there's the front, or HCM's front, but then there's the front office where it's like CRM type stuff. So it would be sales, service, marketing. I know I'm forgetting one, but there's, just another path for CX. So that's how it kind of breaks off. And so that's what you would be. So you'd have to know the core and then your pillar. Yeah.
How do you train for listening skills?
That's really good. So there are other groups within. So I work in, as you can imagine, Oracle is very big, but there are other teams that teach the sales 101s all the way up to like 301, right? And so part of that is listening, storytelling, that sort of thing that they do go through. And that every new salesperson that comes in and gets onboarded, whether they're new, like class of, or experienced salespeople, they get that training as well. And that's all instructor-led though right now. But Yes.
Just to clarify, so that kind of basic sales skills training doesn't fall within sales enablement. So what team is responsible?
Yeah, so we have another team. I don't know what their name is, but they still work under the same umbrella as we do. So if you go to the very top, our group does sales enablement, and then the other team does like the soft skills, the selling skills, and that sort of thing. We also have a partner, a group that does all of that type of training for our partners. So
Salespeople also tend to be sort of self-help junkies for
Yeah.
the most part. So what we do to drive that is actually, of all things, crucial conversations.
yeah,
So we go through and kind of do like the summer reading list, and the managers get into it in a big bad way. But that's a great one for listening, of all things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know at Progress, I would look to hire for people that have those skills. I'm not training them fresh out
Right,
of college. We would
right.
expect to see them do that. But the way we enforce it is by doing things like that.
Yeah.
Thought.
So just to wrap up, and I'm happy to take more questions later if you're shy. I don't want to speak up now, but I just wanted to wrap up with in terms of e-learning, really, I think some of the key things here, having a content blueprint. So understanding, what's your outline for your whole learning plan, making sure you understand that before you actually get started, your learning objectives. You guys all know this, but the big thing for me is the detailed storyboard, because you may not be the person that's developing the e-learning content, right? So we use Captivate, but there's a lot of great tools out there. But storyboard. And I'm talking like very detailed, pictures, very detailed instructions. And I even put the narration, like what I want to be said at each point. So that's it. That's all I had.
All right. Well, thank you. I think it's a good conversation to have from a sales perspective.